Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm Haley, and this is Dick Sakowicz, a Palm Springs
Right
real estate
here.
agent. And today we're getting into one of the biggest milestones in life, buying your first home. Whether you're just starting to save, or you're wondering if you're ready, or you're helping a family member through the process, this episode is for you. Like I said, joining me today is Palm Springs real estate agent expert Dick Sakowicz. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me, Haley.
So, we're going to start this podcast by talking about whether or not it's a good time to buy. So, Dick, would you say, is there ever a really perfect time to buy a house?
I don't think there's a perfect time to buy a house, really. It's really up to the individual to make a decision when they're ready to buy. They have to have a reason to buy. Obviously, if you're renting, you want to maybe buy and build some equity in your home, but you really have to understand financially whether you're ready to buy. Are you willing now to commit to live in that property for a number of years? So it's really up to the individual to make that decision based on their personal position in life, their jobs and things like that.
So, following that, what do you think are the most important things someone should consider before deciding that they're ready to buy a house?
Hmm. Couple of things, I think. Probably you gotta have some job stability, obviously, because unless you're wealthy enough to pay cash, you're gonna wind up with a mortgage. So you need to evaluate your financial position. And you really need to understand that home ownership takes a commitment, not only financially, but in time. So I really think it's important for you to make that judgment um, before you start that process.
So, following that, how much money do you think someone should realistically have saved? Maybe like a percentage compared to how much they're planning to put down on their house?
I think you need to understand the expenses associated with buying a home. It's not only um, there are the down payment costs, there are closing costs, there are moving costs, there are a lot of really hidden expenses that are associated with purchasing a home. And then you have to evaluate the ongoing recurring costs like taxes and utilities, and you need to make sure you evaluate all of that and make that decision based on your financial position.
Mhm. So, adding to that, I think a lot of people, especially people a little bit older than me, considering buying or renting their first house, believe that they need a huge down payment. Is that actually true, or is that horrible?
Well, it depends on, again, that's a really a good question to ask a mortgage broker if you're gonna go for a loan. 20% down is common, but you have VA loans, you have lots of different types of mortgage loans. FHA, government guarantee loans, conventional loans. I'm not an expert and opposed to be one. I would consult a mortgage broker and discuss each of your options before you embark on looking for a home.
I'm sorry, I gotta jump in on that one, because I know, and I don't think I know Mike here, so you may want to do it, so. I know you've sold houses like what I'm gonna describe here before, and in my opinion, you gave a very safe and honest answer with what you said there. But have you ever structured a deal where it was an FHA loan? The seller contributed up to 6% of the buyer's closing costs, and the seller was still willing to pay the buyer's agent commission. And if it's an FHA loan, you have three components that could comprise a buyer's down payment. There are escrow fees, there are lender fees, and there are agent fees. Okay, but if you got 6% contributed by the seller, which you can legally do on an FHA loan, plus he's gonna do your agent, you could be down to a 0.5% gap. Now, it takes a very flexible seller in order to comply with all that. Somebody's gotta really wanna sell their home, because if you add all those numbers together, it's 9%. So on a $400,000 home, that could be 36 grand. But I believe in today's market, somebody with little down payment stands one of the best chances in order to buy a home, because many sellers are anxious to sell, and in lieu of giving a discount, they may be generous on the fees.
I would answer that by saying those are the kinds of things that mortgage brokers will give you information on. I don't propose to be an expert, and I don't even, I don't know, because the situation really changes, but you're right, there's one big component there, and that is that the seller can contribute to some of those costs associated with purchasing a home. What form that takes and how much is really a function of the price of the home, the willingness of the seller to contribute, and your own personal.
I remember the last deal like that I structured, and it was 2 years ago-ish that I did it, and it was for a VA with a veteran who wanted to buy a home. And very similar FHA VA guidelines as far as qualifying for the home. But it's in the VA business, it's called a VA no-no. No down payment, no escrow fees, they don't have to come up with anything out of pocket, right? But a seller has to agree still, so a seller can shoot that down. We had to go through about 8 homes trying to find a seller on a home that this guy liked in order to put the whole deal together. But we did finally put it together, and I think he ended up coming up with about $5,000 was the total cost out of pocket for him. So it was very close to a VA no-no loan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, there are so many different options that are available, and it changes depending on the market, the seller. The mortgage market changes almost daily in terms of interest rates. And the other thing is, if you're buying a new home, some of the deals that the builders of new homes will provide you, well, they'll dig into their own pockets to get you into that home by offsetting many of the expenses, not only associated with the purchasing of the home, but on a new home, perhaps even putting in upgrades and appliances and similar things. So,
Right.
I mean, it's a very complex issue. Financing is not an art, but it's certainly something that has to be looked at through the eyes of an expert.
Okay, yeah, my 2 cents.
No, that's good. And we should keep that in.
Yeah.
If we find the sound is okay, I don't have a microphone right now.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't repeat all of that back if I tried, so.
And I couldn't,
It's no one's work.
and I couldn't either. But I think it's a great conversation. But I go back to, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a mortgage broker, and so I don't purport to be an expert. But I would highly recommend that any buyer of a new home, or a first-time buyer, or any buyer that's going to get a mortgage loan, consult with a licensed mortgage broker.
Fair enough.
All right.
So moving on, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen first-time home buyers make?
Well, it's so easy to look at homes. I think the first-time buyer and many non-first-time buyers will spend their time online looking for properties and just fall in love with a bunch of properties and not really realize they can't afford them. So I think the most important thing is find out what you can afford. If you're going to pay cash and you have the cash in the bank, it's a no-brainer. But if you have to get a loan, then you need to be pre-approved by a mortgage broker so that you have an idea of what you can afford. And it's not only the cost of the mortgage, but it's the cost of all the associated costs with closing and everything else. So you need to have a good 90-day, I would say, maybe even up to 6 months of available cash to enter into an agreement like that.
So now we're going to move on to our second segment, which is focused around financing. So if any of these things are outside of your jurisdiction, or if we need Eric to add some of his takes in, we'll do that. But what does getting pre-approved really mean?
Well, it's simply an appraisal made, not appraisal, that's kind of confusing word. But talking to a mortgage broker, he'll evaluate your income, your debt, One of the important factors is a income to debt ratio. They have certain guidelines, certain ratios will either qualify for your loan or not. But it's basically getting qualified for a loan, whether it be a conventional loan or FHA loan, they all have different requirements to get approved. And you need to do that, I think, first, before you start your search. So get pre-approved, and then start looking.
So why is getting pre-approved so important before you look at a home?
Well, for you as a buyer, it kind of tells you what you can afford. Comfortably afford. You don't want to get yourself while your income goes to pay your mortgage. And it also conveys confidence that you as a buyer will be viewed by the sellers as qualified. That's really, really important because sellers have to have some confidence that the deal is going to go through before they accept your offer. And so that's a very important component. Usually, in fact, the pre-approval letter that you'll get from a lender will be part of the initial offer that your broker will write up as an offer.
Okay. So Dick, why is this pre-approval so important before you buy a home?
Really, several reasons. First, it gives you as a buyer an understanding of what the mortgage you can carry comfortably. That's really important. You don't look at a property you can't afford. And secondly, when you write up the offer with your broker or with your agent, you will include a letter from your lender, which will in fact provide security to the seller that you in fact are qualified. That's very important. And it's usually a component that will be included with the offer to the seller that you make.
So sort of talking about like order of operations, should buyers talk to a lender before or after contacting an agent?
You can do both. You can talk to your agent or your broker, generally about the location and market and what's available and price points. But ultimately, the agent even can recommend a mortgage broker. You should talk to the mortgage broker before you start seriously looking at homes or condos, so you understand what price point you can afford.
Okay, so people hear terms like FHA and VA and conventional loans all the time. Can you explain the differences in simple terms?
Oh, God. FHA is a government-backed loan, and now we're getting to a field that is best answered by mortgage brokers. But there are various types of loans that we are confronted with. You have government guaranteed loans. You could qualify, certainly if you are maybe have a problem with your credit rating. You have VA loans, you have VA loans, which if you're a veteran, have a really special terms, which ultimately you might be able to have zero down payment. And then there are conventional loans, all of which have varying interest rates and are best provided in details by a discussion with the mortgage. It's very important you understand what the differences are and how you might qualify for any of these.
So let's move on to our third segment in terms of shopping for a home. So what should buyers prioritize when they're looking at homes?
Well, first thing, obviously, you have to understand your price point that you can comfortably afford. You don't want to be at your limit, so you need to do that first. That's why a conversation with the mortgage broker and a qualification is the best first start. What are the factors? What's your question again? I get a lot.
What should buyers prioritize when looking at homes?
Well, yeah, boy, a lot of it has to, I always think location is really important. You can always change, you buy a property, you can always fix up the house, but you can't change its location. So I think, location is really important. It depends on your lifestyle. A lot of, maybe, you wanna look at a condo instead of a home. Maybe you don't wanna have a pool. If you want a pool, there are certain expenses you have to, I really think it's a lifestyle issue. But the first thing is determine what kind of property you want, condo, home. And then, find a location which is both convenient and attractive, and avoid locations that, might be next to power lines or, noisy streets or airport noise. So it's really just important to understand, where this property is located.
So I know you've mentioned location a lot. So how important would you say location is versus the actual house?
I go back, same thing. I think it's really important, location. That's usually, what we preach. You can always modify, you can always do a lot of things to your property to improve it, but you can't change the location. I mean, we see some beautiful properties that are right next to, a high power line. It's always a detriment. I mean, in the backyard, you're looking at a bunch of wires, you can have the most beautiful home in the world, but it's not gonna ever change the location. So I think location is really important.
So what are some red flags buyers should watch out for apart from possible downsides to their
In the desert, one of the important things, again, location, where the home is located, I could say that again. We have some locations, north of Palm Springs that are right underneath the flight path, so, I mean, you have to stop talking when the plane flies over. You gotta be aware of that. There's also lease land versus fee land. And there are some advantages to fee land that lots of people, particularly my Canadian clients, will never buy a lease land property because, in Canada, they were able to, essentially have to move their house because there were valuable, minerals in the land, so the land was more valuable than the property. In the desert here, leased land is sitting on sand, so it's not too valuable, sand, so. But you do have certain attributes of home ownership that are important. Ownership of the land is very important to some people. What are those things to worry about? Again, go back to location. If you're gonna buy a condo, you need to understand the HOA rules, understand the financial stability of the condos. So it always goes back to understanding the location and the attributes, and those are best explained by an agent who's knowledgeable in the area.
So do you think buyers should always get home inspection? I know you have your stories about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even new homes, particularly new homes, because they themselves, might have shortcomings that the builders don't even know about. I mean, I've had properties where the agent tells me it's on sewer, and it's not on sewer. In fact, it wasn't even on a septic. So it's important to have and know what the condition of the air conditioning is, what the condition of the roof is, whether it's attached to a sewer or not. There are some things about home ownership that before you close on that home, you need to have it inspected by a professional. And they'll point out any deficiencies you had to know about. And in many cases, you can get the sellers to fix them. And that should be a mandatory part of any offer. So yes, an inspection is absolutely necessary.
Have you ever seen a case where people think they need a certain aspect in their household, but they don't end up actually it's not as big of a deal as I think it would be, like one feature.
Boy, formal dining rooms, I don't even know if anybody uses formal dining rooms anymore. If you think you need to have a formal dining room, think about how many times you have formal dinners. That's certainly one.
What bars?
Wet bars, yeah.
I
Well, it
love wet
depends.
bars.
Yeah, it depends on the age. Wet bars, sunken living rooms always scare the heck out of me.
Oh, I love sunken living.
I sure you do, but then you fall down on it. And, depending on how close it is to the wet bar, I guess. The only thing that really sticks out are dining rooms, because in Palm Springs, we have this wide open space, usually. We have a family room next to a kitchen, there's a lot of interaction, and dining rooms are kind of, I don't know, old fashioned, I suppose.
So we're anti-formal dining rooms, and
Right, it's just wasted space.
dependently, I'm pro wet bar, but you guys are anti-wet bar.
How about atriums? How do we vote on atriums?
Is that the window thing in the middle of the house? I like those. I don't love them. They're kind of unnecessary.
Well, it depends, it really, I don't like them generally, because particularly if they're open to the outside, although they have drains, you open the door for mold and other issues. A lot of that space, I have a condo listing now, and it has an atrium, and it's terrible. I mean, it's just grown up with weeds, and many of the homeowners that I've met, as I sit in open houses, have come and they've all converted the atriums to little offices or enclosed them in some way. But they retain the ability to get natural light inside, they were built in the 70s and the 80s, and that was the reason, to bring light into the interior of the building. So if you retain that by putting a skylight or some other.
So we're pro skylight.
I'm not pro atrium, but if you have a nice property that has an atrium, there are certainly ways you can utilize that space. You're not gonna build a home with an atrium,
Mhm.
because it's just a waste of space.
Fair enough. Anti-atrium and anti-formal dining rooms. Perfect. So let's move on to our fourth segment, even though I'm still pro wet bar. So talking about the buying process, what happens after you find a home that you really love?
Well, if you make an offer, do you want to start with the offer being accepted, or do you want to start the process of making?
Let's start with the process of making an offer.
Well, you have to decide on the price, which is, you put the onus on the agent to provide you with what we call CMA, a competitive market analysis, which tells you, or you as a buyer, what the price of similar properties are, in fact, being sold for. Not what they're asking, but what they're actually sold for. And that gives you kind of a thumbnail sketch of the various properties, and it'll give you a price range. And then you make a decision within that price range, or below that price range, or above, depending on, but at least it gives you a starting point. Well, let's see. Then in this day and age, if you're a buyer, because of the lawsuit that happened back in 2024, I think. Now, buyers agents, you are represented by an agent, and it is essentially the way the rules have come out. You are responsible for paying that agent a commission. And so you have to negotiate with that agent what that commission is. Typically it's 2 to 2.5 to 3% of the purchase price. But there is a stipulation in the offer such that you request that the seller purchase that, the seller include that. And what is that noise?
I think it's my phone. Okay, I hung up on, I turned it on silent, but apparently it's still vibrating.
So anyway, going back to the rules today, in the old days, before the law, before 2024, the buyer's agent and the seller's agent were all taken care of in the listing agreement, which actually showed in many cases what the seller's agent was going to be paid and what the buyer's agent. Now, all of that is separated, and it's important as a buyer that you understand that unless you get the seller to pay for that commission, the buyer's commission, you are responsible for it. So part of what's really important in the offer is that you stipulate in the offer that you are requesting that the seller pay that commission. That's really important. The other thing is, in the offer, you will be requesting certain things that are the responsibility of the seller in your minds. For instance, all of the reports that are necessary, for instance, termite report. We have termites in the district. So there are a number of things like that you'll discuss with your agent as you make that offer, that you put that offer on paper. I don't want to get into a lot of detail because there are a lot of factors. We can spend an entire half hour on identifying what those are. Once that offer is accepted, then you go through the process of evaluating all of the information. And I guess there's something like 40+ pages of disclosures that the sellers are obligated to provide you. It's a great way to go to sleep because it really, a lot of them are just really, it's information, but it's just for your, they assume you know nothing about anything to do with real estate. And so they teach you that in the disclosures, and it just takes a lot of time. And then you have a limited amount of time, and the seller has a limited amount of time to provide that information. And so once the disclosures are then given to you, you've accepted them. If you have any questions, you resolve those questions. Then you, let's see, then you go through an inspection process. At the completion of that, you will then request repairs if there are any requested. And at the end of the day, the seller will either accept, reject, or you'll negotiate repairs. At the end of that, there is a removal of contingency. Everything that you do in terms of that offer are contingent on you getting information that satisfy you that you're buying a property that you truly understand. You've done your inspections, you've had your all your disclosures, you've had deliberations with various inspectors. You may be a roof inspector, septic inspector, house inspector, everything. You've made all of these determinations, and then you come to a decision. Do you want to or don't you? Once you have come to the conclusion that you have all the information you need, you're satisfied, you then remove all of your contingencies. And once you remove those contingencies, which typically is, could be 17 days, could be longer, that's negotiable. But at the end of that, you remove those contingencies. Once you remove those contingencies, you then put your down payment at risk, because typically with an offer, you have a good faith deposit. That's usually around 3%. Could be less, could be more, but it's typically 3% of the purchase price. That you're buying $100,000, property, or $200,000, you're putting down a fairly substantial amount of money. Let's say $6,000, $10,000, $12,000 or more. And that money is just held in escrow and is put in a safe account and is refunded to you should you cancel your purchase. And then at the end of the day, you remove your contingencies, you go to closing, and you close, and the house is yours. That's kind of long-winded, but long process.
Clearly it is. So how long, how
long
long
does it
does
take?
buying this whole process take?
It could be, typically it's 30 days, loans are 45 days. We've closed as much as 10 days
Wow.
on cash deals. So you can get all of this stuff done rather quickly. But it really depends on the specifics of the offer.
So can you further explain what are closing costs and how those work?
Oh, there's all kinds of fees that are best defined. As a buyer, one of the things your agent will do is they'll alert you, or seller. Your buyer or seller or agent will provide you with all of the details of the closing costs that you'll have to pay. As a buyer, you have very few. You have your home inspection and perhaps escrow expenses. Um, but other than that, not much. As a seller, you have a lot of fees. Best described in the seller. That's again another detailed amount of information. I want to take a lot of time. But there are certain expenses that you should be aware of if you're selling a home or if you're buying a home,
Mhm.
and your agent will get that information for you.
So let's move on to the last segment, which is talking about all the stuff we just discussed in regards to the Palm Springs market. So is Palm Springs a good place for first-time buyers?
Yeah, well, I live in Palm Springs. I love it. It's a very eclectic community. Yes, it's expensive compared to uh, again, compared to the other 11 cities in the Coachella Valley, it's maybe not the most expensive, but I think the average single-family home now is well over $1 million. So it's pretty expensive. There are certain attributes that make it worthwhile. Architecturally, it's a very special place. But if you're looking to purchase, again, it depends on your price point.
Mhm.
If you're looking for something more modest, let's say in the $300,000 to $600,000 price range, there are certainly um, better value in Cathedral City or Desert Hot Springs and Palm Desert, even certain parts of Rancho Mirage and La Quinta.
Mhm.
But yes, Palm Springs is a very special place. Um, and each of those communities need to be evaluated for whatever attributes you want as your home base.
Mhm. So would you say there are affordable opportunities or neighborhoods in the entirety of the Coachella Valley that people could look into?
Oh, there's great places. Desert Hot Springs has some communities which are quite good value. As long as you're up the hill a little bit and away from downtown to Desert Hot Springs. Cathedral City has sold a lot of properties in Cathedral City. Prices are up across the valley, but and as it is everywhere. But Cathedral City still has some great value, and it's close to Palm Springs, so you can go there. Palm Desert, same way. It depends on location in these communities. But yes, condos and houses are still quite affordable if that's your objective.
So if you had to give us three main points about what's unique about buying in the desert, what would you say?
Well, lifestyle, I mean, desert lifestyle, I came from Boston years ago, my wife and I. Desert is quite different. It's hot and it's dry. And it's beautiful. This is probably one of the cleanest communities, and I say that across the Coachella Valley, that I've ever lived in. I mean, I lived in Minneapolis, Chicago, Boston, big cities. This is just a lovely place to live. Architecturally, it's unique in many ways with desert modern and some of the real estate, which hacienda style that came out of the pre-1940s. Um, it's just a lovely place. It's a desert lifestyle. It's kind of laid back in a bit. Although there's a lot of activity in Palm Springs compared to LA or other major cities, it's kind of relaxed. It's a place to come and just kick back.
Mhm. Perfect. Well, we've reached the end of that final segment, but I do want to get into some short bursts of advice for young buyers. So, if you are talking to someone in their 20s, what should they be doing now if they want to own their first home?
Well, I think you have to look ahead, save. You need, I would say, 6 months worth of savings. Um, if you got a job, keep it, and if you don't have a job, get one. Avoid high interest debt. And if you have high interest credit cards, pay them off. Get yourself in a position where you're more liquid. And so it takes time. Just manage your finances, because buying a home, buying a condo, buying anything it takes resources, financial resources. And watch your credit. Keep your credit good. Keep it over 700. Because you're gonna get better mortgage rates, and you're gonna have an easier time qualifying for a mortgage. Unless you're gonna pay cash and you happen to be if you're wealthy, yeah. God bless you.
Um, so further, would you say renting is always, some people seem to think that renting is always like throwing your money away and it's a bad use of
No, not at all. I'm sorry. I've had, during the course of my life, I've met many professionals who choose to rent. They don't want the obligation of they don't want the obligation of a mortgage. I know rent's an obligation too, but you don't have the tax consequences, you don't have a lot of the responsibilities that come with owning a home versus renting. Renting is a good alternative. The nice thing about owning, though, there are tax implications, which are very positive, since mortgages today are still deductible from your gross income. But renting is advantageous for many, particularly if they move around a lot.
So how could someone start preparing today if buying is still a few years out for them?
Start preparing.
Mhm.
Avoid getting into high interest debt. And work on your, it goes back to the same thing, work on your credit ratings. It's very important to have a good credit rating. And
Could I try that one? I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I would start at even 18 years old with what's called a secured credit card.
It's me.
Ew.
Are you familiar with a secured
Not.
credit card?
It's a lesson
Okay.
for me too.
A secured credit card, most banks, if you give them $300 or $500, they'll have a minimum threshold that they want. And you put that into a checking or a savings account with that bank. They will give you a credit card, not a debit card, but a credit card equal to the amount that you have put into that account. And so the agreement that they'll have you sign is they get to hold on to that money and you get a credit card. That establishes credit. Okay, in most instances, a bank wants to see 2 years of performance on a person in order to make a credit. If you're going from zero credit to some credit, that's a 2-year window before the bank starts seriously. Sometimes you can do it less, but 2 years is a pretty safe number for a length of time. So for 2 years, can you stay in the same job? Can you stay in the same apartment? Can you pay on that credit card? And ideally on that credit card, you never want to go over half of the card being used. Okay, on any cards, because what will happen is once you have a secured credit card and a bank has taken a chance on you, you start a credit report. So within 30 to 90 days, you're gonna get offered a Penny's card, a Forever 21 card, think of all the Hollister card, all of these, stores at the mall that are national companies are all gonna start, and you'll also get offered a Visa and a MasterCard and American Express and all those things, which many young people will gladly take, but then they will overwhelm themselves with credit. So you do have to manage the credit, like what Dick was talking about there. But if you start with the secured card, the process begins. And if you can keep your nose clean for 2 years, a bank will look at a payment of about whatever your rent was, because you'll have shown 2 years of making that payment. Or they will look at double or triple of whatever your existing high limit is. Now, 2 years, you may not have a high limit of a whole lot, but you may have paid on if you were the one who signed on an apartment. Okay, so you may have that number to work with. But you would look at those 2 years, say, okay, if I start with a secured credit card, maybe I get a car loan a year after that. And at that point, depending on the price of the car, you've gone from a $300 or $500 credit card to a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 auto loan. It's a much more substantial commitment. So in this way, you grow your credit. And that's what I would recommend. Start with a secured credit card. Don't ever use it more than half the card and make your payments. And that way the banks get to see that you use the credit and you pay the credit, but you're letting the banks make a little bit of money along the way.
You have any credit cards?
I don't.
Oh.
I have a debit card. I have no credit cards because I don't trust myself.
One of the things he's bringing up is, I had an uncle once who never had a credit card, paid cash for everything,
Mhm.
and he could not get a mortgage loan
Right.
because he had no established credit. So to have a card as he's speaking, I've never heard of this card. He's got so many kids, and I'm sure he's taking this. He knows this chapter and verse.
I can tell you a couple of other tricks to do if your parents have good credit.
But
My
in
dad
any case, establishing credit is very important. Because if you go to a bank and you don't have any established credit, if you, for instance, I assume, maybe incorrectly, that many young people have credit cards. They're easy to get.
I mean, I feel like a lot of my generation just rely on debit cards because honestly, I feel like there's a sort of epidemic of terrible financial literacy.
I think you're absolutely right.
And I mean, I know even myself, sometime if I were to think about getting a credit card, I'd honestly be a little scared because I know that that's maybe one of the things I don't trust myself with at this age.
So there you go. This is a generational,
I love the casino.
This is a generational discussion, right?
Absolutely.
Because we have come from, I don't know what it is, but anyway, great. But just remember, you need to establish credit. And so what he's saying is that
Maybe we need to sit Eric down and have a financial literacy crash course in our
The first step
podcast. Yeah.
is a secured credit card that anybody who has no credit, most banks will do that. If your bank does not do that.
My bank has been offering it for me and I've just kept ignoring it. So maybe that's the next step. Yeah.
That's a good first step. Yeah, at least talk to your banker about it.
Yeah.
And then Matt, within, as he's saying.
Well, I'll tell you something you're gonna run into somewhere in the next 3 to 7 years, okay? You're gonna wanna take a trip on a plane to some city where you don't have a car waiting for you. And you're gonna want to rent a car.
Mhm. And you need a
Most
credit
car
card for that.
rentals do not take a debit card.
Mhm.
They want a credit card.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't have at least a secured credit card, you're gonna be at the airport going, but I ordered it online, they said they do it. And some guy or gal in the airline is gonna say,
Exactly.
no, can't do that.
So to all the young people, get a credit card,
Get
good
a
credit,
secured-
good a secured
For about, for 100,000 or something.
100,000 secured credit card. Don't get an atrium and don't get a formal dining room.
Talk
Perfect.
to your mortgage broker about.
And talk to your mortgage broker. Don't call Dick Sakowicz about your mortgage.
That's right.
He will not be able to help you.
He'll point you to the right direction.
Yep, he will point you to that broker. So on perfect ending note, buying your first home can definitely feel overwhelming, but with the right guidance, it doesn't have to be. Thank you so much for sharing your advice today, Dick. And if you're thinking about buying your first home in Palm Springs or the Coachella Valley, be sure to reach out to Dick with any questions or mortgage broker. And thank you for watching. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.